Here we go.
Welcome, LA Progressive friends, families, and readers. Today, Dick and I are so excited to have Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez, who represents Los Angeles City Council District 1, which we happen to be constituents of. And we're just so happy to have you here with us today.
Very, very excited to be here and grateful for this opportunity to be able to talk with y'all now that we're in office.
So let's start with a big issue. Housing affordability and houselessness are crushing issues for Los Angeles, have been that way forever. Programs have come down the pike one after another. Lots of money's been spent on it. And yet the issue, if anything, seems to be getting worse. What are your thoughts about that? What do you think the LA City Council can do to really try to solve this issue?
That's a great question. You know, last year and in the years before, we saw that LA City has done a tremendous job in housing people. You know, a couple years ago, they housed 20,000 people in 1 year. The issue is, though, at the same time, over 25,000 people became homeless. And so we are not catching up with the demand of people becoming homeless. And a lot of it has to do with people getting evicted from their homes. We do not have enough tenant protections to support people and keep them housed. We haven't invested significantly in, rental assistance fund. There are people right now who are 3, 4, 5 months in debt in rent that they haven't been able to pay for various reasons, right? Stemming from COVID, stemming from a lack of being able to get jobs. We don't talk enough about the collateral consequences people experience after they've gotten a conviction or once they've been criminalized and put on a gang injunction list. We don't talk about those things enough. But these are the drivers of people not being able to stay housed, not being able to afford housing. And so we're doing a lot to house people. But as a city council, we need to really look in the mirror and dig deep in establishing renter protections that are going to keep people housed, as well as homeowner protections. I'm a homeowner in CD1, and so I know that there are other homeowners in the district that are struggling that haven't been able to receive support. So we need to build a better spectrum in keeping people housed, because right now, it's an arterial bleed that we just keep putting Band-Aids on, and it's not getting us anywhere. But I know that my colleagues, Hugo Soto Martinez, myself, and Nithya have really come together to figure out, how do we begin to establish renter protections and other housing policies that'll keep people housed instead of just trying to catch up with the problem. And sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
No, I was just saying that's great. I mean, we've known you for many years. I already knew that you were boots on the ground, involved in the kinds of things, these kinds of solutions where you work on the foundational issues. And I was wondering, as a city council member, do you still have those same kinds of tools in your toolbox where you really can address the drivers that cause people to end up without having a place to live?
I think right now I even have even more access than previously. People power is a lot. People power persuades government to do things, right? But now we're on the inside. Now we have access to the city budget, through the Budget and Finance Committee, through motions. And so I feel an even bigger sense of responsibility because we have access to these resources. And so now it's about, now we have a decision-making power over these resources. How can we begin to get them out to community? And that's what it's been always for, since our campaign is like, how do we open up City Hall to the people? How do we open up resources within the city for the people? And that is what we're learning right now, right? We just got sworn in December, and I know the honeymoon's over, but it's learning time. It's okay. We have over $1 million at our discretionary funds. How do we begin to disperse that out in community? So that's what we're figuring out right now. And I mean, I think it's better than before because we do have access and visibility. Because oftentimes on the outside, you don't know where the resources exist. We become budget experts, right? But that only gets us so far. But now we actually have power over how to redistribute those funds. And I think it's a better opportunity for our communities.
So we understand that you're welcoming a delegation from Denver about alternative responses instead of sending police officers with guns to deal with homelessness and domestic violence and so forth. You'd send therapists and so forth. You want to talk about that delegation and about the need for change in this arena?
Yes. So, we got sworn in December, and in January, we saw 3 people get killed by the LAPD. All 3 of them suffering from mental health crises, people of color. And, part of the work that we've done in the past and I've done in community is to build out alternatives to incarceration. and alternate types of crisis response so that these things don't happen. And so we're bringing Denver Star because Denver, the city and the county have done a phenomenal job in building out a system of alternate crisis response so that when these, high acuity calls or when these crisis calls come in, they're able to dial 911 and a STAR team comes out. And a STAR team could be either led by a clinician, led by a nurse, or led by a community or like an organizer. It's a combination of different people depending on what the need is. And they've been able to, again, plug it into 911, make it an issue that, a team that's accessible throughout the city and the county. And that's why we're bringing them here, because the city of LA and the county of LA have kind of piecemealed this, this type of response. They haven't made it fully accessible to 911. And so we want to bring them to show the city and the county like, hey, we can build up a system that can meet the needs of our community. Within a span of several months, a couple of years ago, the Denver Star team answered over 5,500 calls, none of which they had to rely on law enforcement. Even though, they have co-responder teams in Denver, and co-responder teams are like clinician and law enforcement. So they exist in that landscape. But the Denver Star team, over 5,500 calls, not once have they had to use police. And so we here in the city of LA and the county have given so many responsibilities to police, have thrown every, crisis and community failure on top of them. And that's not fair to them. And so we really need to build out the teams and the tools so that there's other systems of support for our communities. So we're not putting, first responders and our communities in situations where people are getting killed, people are getting hurt. And we brought them to show them that there's a different way and a way that you can scale it up, because we can't keep piecemealing this issue because people are going to keep dying. And, we're in the moment right now where we just can't look away anymore. And I told the team, our team, that if there's a hill that I'm going to break a leg on or die on, this is going to be the one, because we've lost too many people. We've hurt too many people, not just the people that have died, but like the family, like after, like the kids, the families, like they have to deal with remembering, Marco Vasquez Jr., David Ordaz Jr., Anthony Vargas, all these people have been killed when they needed help. And so that's why we're doing this. And that's why we're bringing Denver, because enough is enough and it works. We just need to invest in it, truly invest in it.
Yeah. I remember there was a time when we had something called the psychiatric emergency teams here in Los Angeles. And I think we don't have them anymore. It sounds very similar to what Denver did with the STAR teams.
Yes. So the county of LA has what are called PMRTs, psychiatric mobile response teams. And they're similar to Denver, but they're not connected to 911. We don't have enough. And because it's a county program, it's focused on areas outside of the city. So like unincorporated LA and the other 87 cities that exist. And so as a city with over 4 million people, we have a responsibility to figure out, okay, do we build out more psychiatric mobile response teams? And that's where we're at right now, where we want to do that. And we just want to bring in Denver to show we can scale it up. So it's enough with the piecemeal, because you're right, these teams exist. We just haven't invested in them in a transformative way that's actually going to meet the needs of our communities. I think there's like 36 teams in the entire county.
Do you think that there would be pushback from like the LA County Sheriff or, for the law enforcement agencies that have in their budget, they've been the ones that have been responding to these? What kind of cooperation do you think you'll be able to get from them?
So I've visited, I believe, 6 police stations within the city of LA and within our district, where I've spoken with leadership at those police stations, but I've also spoken with police officers who are on the ground. And time again, they told me, look, we're having to go to answer mental health crisis response calls. We don't want to answer mental health crisis response calls. There are folks who are pushing MEUs, the smart teams, those exist already. But what we haven't invested in is this other piece that's not led by law enforcement. And law enforcement themselves have said we want to see that built out so that we're not the ones having to go to those calls, because when we go to those calls, we're stuck at those calls for a long time, and then we're not able to go to other emergencies where maybe someone got shot or someone got hurt. And so these are they want to see this. They want to see this added to the spectrum of responses that exist in the city, because they've had to answer to everything and they don't have all the tools to answer everything.
Yeah, so to me, this seems like just such a perfect program. It honestly seems like a piece of what defund the police is actually about. Take police funds and put it into social work funds that can deal more effectively with the problems.
Yeah, it's excellent. And speaking of dealing with problems, my 311, it seems like you have put some more energy, some more oomph into my 311. Personally, I have used that service for about 3 or 4 years with literally no response. But since you've been sworn in, I used it one time, and within, I'd say, a few days, I got contacted by one of your staff people. So I'm going to do a series that talks about my 311 and my personal experience with it. But I want you to tell our readers, what is my 311? How does it work? Because I'm really excited. It looks like it's been infused with some new energy.
Yes, so My LA 311 is an app that I suggest everybody download, because when you have graffiti, when you need bulky items removal, when you need trash picked up, when you have an issue of a broken down abandoned house, like, this is the number that we need community to call, so that as a city council office, we know the issues that are in our community so that we can respond appropriately. And you said that there's a little bit more energy behind it. When we came into office, we said that we wanted to be different from previous administration by being responsive. What we got at the doors constantly was like, look, we didn't get responses from the previous team, so we wanted to change that. We invested heavily in our field team and in making sure that when these issues came up, we would respond, whether it was in a few days, whether it's in a week, that people would get a response so that they knew that we are alerted of the issue. And building relationships with our city departments that actually have to do the labor of going to the abandoned house or filling the pothole, so that they feel supported and that they know that they're going to be held accountable to these requests that come in, so that it just doesn't fall, somewhere in the ether through the cracks. It's a priority for us to invest in this. And, it's not impossible to give a response. Is that just people weren't interested in giving responses, but now that's changed. And whatever the issue is, our team is on it. I know that folks are really happy to also see quick graffiti removal. But if I could just say and take a step back, the city of LA right now is struggling in hiring people. We have a ton of vacancy rates, high vacancy rates within all our departments. In the city of LA, you have 1.5 people who install and do the speed bumps in a city of 4 million people.
Wow.
And so, we're lucky that the departments are, stepping up to respond to these issues quickly. And we're fortunate that our team is also strong in that. But when we look at the long term, like, there's just so much that as a city we need to do to bring people into the city to do the labor. Even so, I talked about speed bumps, but also sidewalks. If let's say you have a bad sidewalk in front of your house or in front of a school, and it's like the top, like, it meets all the criteria to be like the highest level of need for replacement for this sidewalk, it can still take up to 7 years for that sidewalk to be repaired, because we lack city staff a lot of times to do the actual labor. And so I did want to uplift that for people. So one, if you're interested in a job, apply to the city, but also for people to know that sometimes things take a long time because we just don't have the people power to actually make it happen. But myself, my colleagues, Hugo Soto Martinez, Tim McCosker, we're really working on how to facilitate a better and quicker hiring process, so that we can start meeting all the needs of the city. But 311 is one of the most important tools, because it lets us know what's happening on the ground, and it gives us a number that we can track through a process so that we know that it crosses the finish line.
Wow. Well, I'm surprised to find out about the problem with hiring. Do you know the source of the problem? Is it that people don't know where to go? Because we'll put it up there, the LA City website.
Yes, please put up the LA City website right now. We've lost a lot of institutional knowledge because of COVID-19 retirements, people leaving the city, and we just haven't regained that people power back. So that's where we're at right now with these high vacancy rates, a lot of retirements, a lot of departing to other jobs. And so we're trying to fix the process so it's quicker to hire people, because right now it does take some time to come on board. So we're trying to change that. But yes, please put up the link. We need as many people to sign up as possible.
Great.
So as you know, the LA City Council has gone through one crisis after another, with indictments, convictions, leaked tapes, and the like. And really, it's kind of lost the confidence of many Angelenos, I would say. Do you and your fellow new council members have some ideas of how you can restore that confidence?
That's a great question. And I think we saw the results of that in the CD6 race with the low voter turnout. Like people are just not plugged in. Um, and it's been something that we've been dealing with since we got in, because no one trusts us. Not even people who come from organizing a community, like people just don't have trust in us or in the bureaucracy. And so what we've been trying to do is to create more access to government, making sure that people know when the meetings are happening, making sure that every week we do a legislative recap online so that people know, hey, these are the motions that have come through City Hall. These are the motions that we're uplifting. We do it in English and Spanish. And so these are just small steps that we're taking to make City Hall and like everything we're doing more inclusive and accessible. But we need to do a lot more. And I think it's going to require the rest of the council to come on board and to really start stepping up for the communities that have been left behind, the communities most impacted by these tapes, because there's still a lot of harm that hasn't been addressed. There's still people making decisions that are, I'll say this, but like anti-Black, anti-poor, anti-LGBTQ. And so there's a lot of work to do, but I have confidence that myself and some of our newer colleagues and what people are calling the progressive bloc are doing the work to make government more inclusive and transparent to people. And colleagues like my good friend Kenneth Mejia too, who's doing reports, who's putting out information so people know what's happening, like he just did with the animal services report. So I don't think it's going to happen 1 year to the next. I don't even think it'll happen in 2 years, but we have to do the work of making sure that people know what's happening in government and that they know that they can come in and make their voices heard, and it means something, right? Not just speaking into empty space, but that their comments are really taken into consideration. And so even paying attention when people are speaking public comment, I think is just some of the small things that we could do as a whole to make people feel more heard.
Great, great. Well, I'm thrilled that you're in the position that you're in, because, we've seen the work that you've done for at least a decade. And I'm interested in the connections that you have in the media sphere. So right now you're talking to LA Progressive, and I know that, you had done some work with other smaller outlets. Are you still staying connected? I guess what I'm asking is, now that you are a city council member, are you going to change? Are you going to now start to distance yourself? We see it happen so often. People that we work with, they become elected, and then all of a sudden you kind of don't know them anymore. So far, I haven't seen that with you.
No, that terrifies me. That terrifies me. I tell the team all the time, like, please, like, just don't treat me differently, because I feel that's how really people start to change and disconnect from the purpose of why they're here. Right. It's something, when there's an issue that I'm struggling with, I call my colleagues at La Defensa, I call my colleagues that I've done movement work with to make sure that I'm grounded in my decision, that I'm making, because we've built together with community a long-term vision, right? And so making sure that the decisions I make do not impact that long-term vision is a way that I stay grounded. I do believe in accountability. I don't think that necessarily needs to look like bullying, but I am open to, people have my number. If I do something, call me, text me. And I know that changes obviously with time, but I remain open to people. I don't, I will say it is a lonely experience being in this position, because you're the one that has to make the decision, a decision that, represents 250,000 people. But I tell my team all the time and people around me, just please, if I start being weird or start changing, like bring me back, because it's something that I do think about all the time, because I don't want to lose that. That's how you lose people power. That's how you lose a vision. And we've done a decade's worth of work, and I'm not going to throw it away just because I'm in here. That it would be for nothing. So it's something I think about all the time.
So two thoughts. You mentioned the District 6 race. Do you have any thoughts about that? And there's also been thoughts about that each council member represents too many people, and that the council ought to be larger with more people. Do you have any thoughts about either of those two issues?
I just think that I really hope that Council District 6, the community of Council District 6, plugs in to the runoff election. This person gets to decide how your district resources are used. This person will represent about 250,000 people, businesses, schools. In our district alone, we have 54 schools. And so I just would hope that they plug in, because when stuff hits the fan, it's that person who's responsible for responding. When there's a crisis in your district, when there's people that are harmed, like, it all goes back to who is that legislative representative, and it means a lot. So I hope they plug in. And 250,000 people is a lot of people to represent. Our district alone has over 22 neighborhoods. I don't know what the appropriate number would be. I know that New York is too many. That's just, even if I was a community organizer, to wrap my mind around having to lobby over 50 legislators, that's not sustainable. And so I don't know what the number is, but I would be interested in seeing what that would look like. And, an independent redistricting process is necessary as well. And I know that we're talking about that now in some of our committees. And so I hope people plug in. If you're interested in representation, if you're interested in independent redistricting, there is a government reform committee that is currently taking up that conversation right now. So tap in, which is another thing that we also post on Instagram. When we have, when I'm in committee, I post so people can join. But there's a lot right there, a lot to be seen.
Wow. Well, Councilmember Hernandez, you hit the ground running. I can tell that you're juggling a whole lot, and we're very appreciative of what you've done so far. I mean, I experienced an almost immediate change in my LA 311 call. So thank you for doing what you're doing. We're going to stay plugged in, and actually we're going to be going to cover that panel on Thursday when Star Denver comes to Los Angeles. So we're looking forward to that. You want to say anything else, honey, before we close out?
Yes, I mean, we've known you for a decade anyway, and we think you're a rising star, and we very much are glad we've supported you right along. And thank you for taking this time out of your very busy day.
Always have time for you, Dick and Sharon. Y'all threw down when everybody, when a lot of us didn't have faith that we could do it. But you did, and so I'm really grateful, and I don't take this, this opportunity lightly, this job lightly. It's a responsibility, that we think about and act on every single day. And I look forward to being able to update you more as we move forward. We're just in month number 5.
Awesome.
So we got a long way to go, but I'm just grateful for y'all, and thank you again for this time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.